If you're about to go on your webinar, if you're about to go live, you got to think to yourself, what's the worst possible thing that could happen here? What's the worst possible thing? But here's the deal. You don't sit and worry about it, all right? The truth about panic, think of it this way. That's what this word, I made this up. When you panic, you just put another nail in the coffin. Panic kills. It's terrible on your health, by the way. Worry this is a simple question you ask yourself. If there's something right now you're worried about, maybe it's a financial worry, maybe it's a health worry. I had a client of mine that came to one of our workshops. We were working with her, and she got very emotional. We asked, what's the one thing holding you back? And she said, I can't go out and promote my business on social media because I have a job. I'm like, okay, talk to me about that. If my boss sees this, I'll get fired. I'm like, that sounds rough. Well, then what might happen? Well, if I get fired, we'll have to take our kids out of private school. And they had to bust their butts to get into it. They worked hard academically and athletically to get into this school. And if we can't afford to keep them there, we're going to have to pull them out and put them into the public school. And that's not a good scene where we live. I'm like, I understand that. Let me ask you a question. What's the worst thing that could happen? And that was what she described. I'm like, that's as bad as it gets? Yes. Nobody's going to die. Nope. That's the worst thing that could happen. And I asked her this one question. Will that outcome really ruin you? If you go on a Facebook Live and your boss finds it, will it really ruin you? And she sat and thought about it and went on a Facebook Live that day and made a lead, closed the sale. Now she doesn't have a boss anymore because she resigned. Not because of that one sale, not because of that one Facebook Live, you understand. It was a behavior pattern. Because she asked the question, the crap that was, she was not building her business. She had invested almost $40,000 and didn't do a damn thing with it. Is that crazy? Because of this. She wasn't dealing with fear, she was dealing with worry, and she was on the verge of panic. Does that make sense? Yeah. You guys want a really simple 4-step process for how to deal with fear? Yes. I have 3.5 minutes to do this. Watch. Hold my beer. I want you to think of a fear that you have, a real fear. Now, I'm not talking about like a fear of heights, but even that, actually, we'll work with this. I'm talking about the fear that's holding you back from making a 6 or a 7-figure business, if that's your target. If whatever this target is, the thing that's keeping you in Stuckville, I want you to think about that fear right now. Write it down. Do it. Physically write it down. And if you're like, well, I don't really know what it is, or you're like, I don't have any fear, I'm fearless. Flight boy. That's fine. We're going to use the word fear as an acronym because I'm a pilot. We use acronyms, so stick with me. The F stands for face it. Now think about this. Have you guys ever gone to a play, a live performance? Not a movie, but an actual play? You ever notice how they can turn a scene real fast? Like it goes from being like, I don't know, they're like in an apartment and then all of a sudden they're outside. They just move those backdrops. That's all fear is. Fear is a giant wall on wheels. Here's the one thing I will tell you about fear. Fear has very little resilience. Fear talks a big game. Fear is full of shit. Because the minute you lean against it, just like the minute you lean against one of those backdrops on a play set, it moves. If you face the fear by simply going, I got to be honest with you, I have this fear of being on a Facebook Live, or I have a fear of losing my money, I have a fear of not getting my investment back, at least be honest. You just did the first step just now. You wrote it down. For those of you that are playing along, you just faced it on a surface level. Now you got to get deep with it, all right? When I talk about facing your fear, I'm not talking about getting like marinating in it. I'm talking about let's just get real with it. Let's define it. Let's stop BSing ourselves and figure out what the actual fear is. Does that make sense? The E is we're going to evaluate it. Do you remember what TJ said? He gave you 3 questions. What were those 3 questions? 3, 2, 1. That's right. What worked? What didn't work? What might I do different? So look at your fear. What works about your fear? Let me ask, who is willing to share what their fear is? Shout it out. Time. What about time?
There's so many other things going on, and having the time to sit down and do this.
Okay, so you're afraid you might not have the time to actually follow through and do it. Awesome. What about that fear actually works for you? What's just one thing? We won't go through the whole 3, 2, 1. What's one great quality about that fear?
I can overcome it.
Okay, awesome. Does that work? Do you really believe that?
Yes.
Good. Does that feel like is that something that works? When she said, hey, I can overcome it. She knows what the fear is. She knows what one of her big barriers to success is, and that's the fear that she might not have the time. So now, what works is she actually has a fear. I think it's awesome that you have a fear. Because you know what that means? That tells me, when we're going back to the words, tell me about your thoughts and your belief system. It tells me that you freaking care. I have a death fear of one of my children dying. And it's not because I think, oh, they're little rugrat brats, because they mean the world to me. A death fear of my wife passing away, right? Because they mean the world to me. I have a death fear of my business going under because it means the world to me. So guess what? Every single day I do the best I can to wrap my kids up in love and let them know that daddy is the freaking biggest fan in their life. And my wife, that I may not be the knight in shining armor, but God damn it, I love her more than anything. And I don't care what anybody says. She's the number one for me. And my business is the same way. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's where you've got to be with this. So when you look at it, you're like, hey, I'm going to evaluate this. What works about this? At least you have a fear. At least you have a business to care so much about that you have a fear that's generated from it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Great. Now, you evaluate it. What works? What doesn't work? Well, it's keeping me, in the case of we were talking about my student that we were talking about a moment ago, it's not working because her fear of being found out by her boss was literally keeping her from taking action. So what might you do differently? I said to her. I might go on a Facebook Live. Okay, cool. So she did. When you evaluate your fear, what happens to it? Does it become bigger? It comes smaller, right? It's kind of like that annoying next door neighbor. Now you're getting to know them a little bit. Hey, you know what? I can appreciate the fact. You know what works about this? That you actually have a business that serves people that probably need it. That's cool that you have enough compassion for people that you'll drive them to their medical appointments. And it's really cool you're making money at it, right? All of a sudden it humanized it. Instead of him being this jerk that lives next door or this fear that's going to stop me dead in my tracks, now I have taken it and taken some of its power away. The A is, of course, we got to act on it. We have to take action on it, right? If you are ever overwhelmed, if you are ever freaked out, if you're ever saying to yourself, oh, I don't know if I could do this, you have to understand the single best antidote to that is to do something, even if it's small. Do something even if it's kind of like wrong. I don't want to say wrong. That's what's going to get you there. And of course, reevaluate it. After you've taken the action, ask the question, what worked, what didn't work, what might I do different? Fair enough? Yeah. Fair enough. Don't be perfect, just be awesome. You don't have to be a rock star. You don't have to be Keisha Bass. You don't have to be Terry Lamb. You just got to be yourself and grow into your version of awesome. Now, I know I gave you 4 and I promised 5, so I'll be really quick about this because I'm severely over time. Here's distinction 5. Literally, you cannot Google your way to success. So don't do it. Don't do it. Get your mentor. You guys have one. Lean on him. Lean on them. That's the beautiful part. It's not him, it's them. You have an entire team of people. Lean on them. You took the action. Now, leverage these folks. Does that make sense? Yeah. Do you feel like you've got some of the best support in the world? Oh, yeah. You absolutely do. You're in the right place at the right time. You made amazing strides just in these 3 days. Imagine what you're going to do over the next 12 months working with your mentor. I will tell you this. It's been a real honor and a privilege to be with you guys for 3 days. I'm excited for each and every single one of you. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful to Misha to even invite me to come out to this thing. I think what he's built is amazing. I think the fact that he's attracted such great people like you is something that you got to all look at and think, man, I am so freaking lucky. I can't believe how freaking awesome this is. That's the thing you got to remember. And remember one more thing. No matter what course you fly in life, fly high, fly fast, and fly far. Thanks, friends. I appreciate you.